Okay, folks, it's time for week 7 of the NFL season. Pro Football Ireland rolls in to maybe lucky number 7, the week of the season. Michael McQuaid, Mark Hogan, Jason Heads on our weekly preview presented by 888 Sports, the official betting partner of the NFL in Ireland and in the UK. And after a 3-week slumber in London, Mark, I'm so excited to sit up this weekend and watch games. I'd like to thank my brother-in-law for getting married on Saturday. So another week out of the literally, man, what's going on? Have you got a chance to relax this weekend, or are you gonna go watch Ireland against Argentina on Friday night?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would call a slumber the last 3 weeks that we've had. It's been pretty hectic, but no, I have booked a flight back from Paris from the Rugby World Cup for Sunday morning, so I could get a full go at the whole at the Sunday slate, because I'm absolutely dying to sit back and actually watch a bit of Red Zone, not from a taxi or not from an airport for the first time in weeks.
I'm going to give a shout out to my mate Shane, who says, yeah, literally, like, very busy, and I feel bad for not texting Shane half the time at the minute because he's not busy. He's a big Patriots fan. Trying to get him to go to Frankfurt, but he says the championship is more important. Shane, Jason texted me saying that I jinxed Ireland last week. I did no such thing. Bigger news, though, while we don't get depressed, your man, Jeff Reinbold, has sold out your home city of Cork. I'm nervous, I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, do you reckon Jeff is a Beamish man or a Murphy's man? What do you think?
Oh, I think he's a Beamish man. Yeah, just the look of him. I think Beamish. Oh, it's going to be great. Yeah, big NFL town is Cork, so you know the Mardyke always has that place packed out on a Sunday night, and can't wait to see Jeff light it up there, because we don't get as many events down here as up the country, and clearly selling out the show this early, it shows that the hunger is there, Michael.
The hunger is there, my friend, and look, personally, I'm buzzing to go to Cork again, but go to Cork for an NFL advice to see at this time. I just want to thank everybody for placing their trust in us. Look, it's not cheap either. It's costly to get something down around there. So I certainly appreciate it. I know these guys at the whole crew at Pro Football Ireland, everybody really.
You say buzzing, Michael, that you're buzzing to go back to Cork. How long did it take you the last time to get down there?
2 days. No, it took 5 hours, and it took about 20. This is a whole different discussion. €24 in tolls, which is a whole different conversation, which we can
24.
talk about when the time comes. Look, there was a toll going to Dublin from Newry, and then there was a toll, the M50 toll, which I almost keep forgetting to pay, and then there was a toll at there was one toll on the M7, then there was another toll going on to the M8, and then there was another toll going into Cork, and then I think there was another toll on the road that I was on going in. Like I went the wrong way, so it probably wasn't €24, but it was upwards of 15. And
jeez, you wouldn't want to pick up a speeding ticket on the way. Then that's all you need.
Well, I found out. Thank you for that. I found out that there are, for people wondering, people in the north that never go down like me, venture down to the wild depths of the south. There are average speed cameras going to Limerick. These like yellow yokes. So you have to slow it down when you see them. They don't like you have to like go from A to B in a decent time. So there's my tip of the week. Let's get into the NFL action. But genuinely, folks, thank you so much for doing that. We've got Phoebe coming to Belfast on Tuesday, November the 21st. We're still trying to persuade Mark Hogan to get a 24/7 bus service up and down to Belfast. Chat to Phoebe. That's TBC, but I will be there certainly. Phoebe's really excited for it. There's about 50 tickets sold for that already. Maximum capacity is 90, so do jump on that if you want. If you want to hit me up, I'll get you tickets for £2. £2 sterling. And then Jeff's in Ireland across January and February. linktr.ee/NFL Ireland. This is such a big week in the league, boys, because it feels finally, after London's over, that we're starting to see the season sort of go out. So it's really up to what happens this week. And I love technology because Mark's told me to call out the games after, and I'm just going to have a bit of crack. Mark, let's talk about London. What team do you think is best placed to make a Super Bowl push after London, after these last 3 weeks? Because we've seen the Jags twice, we've seen the Ravens, we've seen the Bills. Do you think perhaps the Falcons or potentially the Titans could make a run at it now as well?
It won't be the Falcons anyway, unfortunately, because I went in thinking that they could be a playoff team, and they've just broken my heart. It's too much. It is too strong. But like, I was so excited for the Falcons, and like, I just do not want to watch them again. Haven't seen them in London. Jags and Baltimore are the interesting ones, but I think it has to be the Bills. Like, I think they might be coming into their stride a bit more. The question mark for me with the Bills is definitely the injuries in the defensive backs. I think we're going to get through this as the podcast goes on, that I think legacy and how we feel about teams because of other years maybe influences us too much. And I think that I'm affected by the Bills in the playoffs, and that's when I'm going to get nervous for them. But they're still the team that I want to watch week in and week out. One thing that I did think was really interesting, and I'm kicking myself because I didn't have the time to go and check the actual numbers, but I do think it was really interesting that the Jags went and won their game really handy this week. Now, it was obviously against a lesser Colts team, but we did set that game up last week thinking that they could be decent, obviously. But they had no jet lag concerns whatsoever coming back from London. And then the Bills obviously almost lost to the Giants. So you're like, you cannot give them a pass. You can't give the Bills a pass and say, oh, well, they were in London. The Jags were in London for 2 weeks and played a team only as equal to the Giants. So from that point of view, I do think that the Bills result was a bit worrying this weekend. But I just can't see past them from what I saw, like, not up close and personal. Obviously, the Bills lost, but yeah, I like the Jags. But I think maybe if one or two of you suggest the Jags, maybe I'll have a retort in return.
And Jason, for me, and I probably should have given my pick at the start of this, Jason. I'll let you go after me if you don't mind, my man. I can see you wearing that Cardinals red for people in the podcast. Someone's coming back from an injury, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But I have to say, look, I think it's almost lazy or generic of me to sit here and say that to see Trevor Lawrence in the flesh and see how he played, that's not a good enough excuse to say that the Jags can go win the Super Bowl. You got to look back a few weeks, and this is the Jags team, Jason, that started the season 1-2 with a loss to the Texans, and there was numerous doubters of all the fans in Jacksonville who were already annoyed at the situation with the team, with the stadium, what's going to happen, starting to talk, like they're up and down like a yo-yo, a bit like the Chargers. The Jags are really starting to play, in my opinion, like genuine Super Bowl contenders in the AFC. Look at their defense, like especially the back seven, like they're playing really, really well. The offense is starting to show some signs of life. The play calling is not fantastic whenever you're looking at short yardage situations, but this is a team, especially in London, that started to sort of gel together. Like compared to last year when they had completely the opposite situation where they were really struggling. This year, they look a lot more fresh, a lot more comfortable. And even in the first week when they were in London for only a few days, they look great. But I look at like that last game against the Colts last week. It was a rematch of opening day, a game where they looked at certain situations. Obviously, Gardner Minshew was playing for the Colts, but you looked at how they performed and the points they put on the board. This offense, frankly, and I don't want to timestamp this podcast, but they should win Thursday Night Football, regardless who's going to be on that field. I think for me, the only issue I have at the minute is Trevor Lawrence is struggling to spread the ball around. You're going to have Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Travis Etienne. All these guys, by their job, want the ball at all times. So it's going to be hard for him to actually get the ball out to all these guys. But I guess that's a nice problem to have. But they have so many offensive weapons. At the end of the day, this team is going to go as far as Trevor Lawrence can take the Jags. And if he can get them to that next level from where they're at right now, I think they'll make the AFC Championship game. I think they're in a very, very tough conference, but if they continue to improve in the way that they're doing, and Lawrence continues to improve his game and that defense, you got guys like Cisco, Darius Williams, Tyson Campbell, they could all go to the Pro Bowl easily. Campbell is playing lights out. He's one of the best shutdown corners in the league at the minute. So I'm buzzing.
Darius Williams, like, oh my God, he's playing insane at the moment. And like you say, when you talk about the offense, like people are probably hanging on too much to Calvin Ridley. I think I probably said it in a podcast, I'm sure I have, but it's Christian Kirk. Like that's the guy in the offense that going back to last year was class, but this year it's like, that's where I feel come playoff time, he's who you're going to rely on, because the thing that's holding me back with the Jags is just that Calvin Ridley has had his drops, and when that's removed, that'll give them that extra little crease that like really puts them over the edge. But like, yeah, listening to you there, everything's going right for the Jags right now, and that's why it's actually really exciting. I'm kind of like, oh, what am I talking about the Bills? The Jags are so fun right now.
I'm almost as excited to see the Jags play this week and next week as I am to see Patrick Mahomes and Tua in Frankfurt in 2 weeks' time. Bless myself, people on the camera there. Jason, do you believe in the Jags? What team from London do you feel like, because I felt bad that you weren't over. You were definitely missed, man. Looking forward to seeing you over in London for at least one game next year. I tell you what, man, I'm not looking forward to going to Stansted again. And the security queues. Did Mark tell you the crack?
Yeah, well, geez, I found it funny there that you're both looking forward to an evening on the couch watching Red Zone this weekend. Well, I've been doing that for the past 3 weekends and jealous of you guys over in London. So grass is always greener, I suppose. In terms of the teams that we got to see play in London. Well, firstly, just a bit of background to the segment, because I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but it's always useful to refresh. The New York Giants were involved in the first London game in 2007, and then they went on to make the Super Bowl. But since then, not a single London team has actually reached the Super Bowl in the same year that they played in London. I'm not saying that's related, but it's just a kind of unusual streak when you essentially think that there's been 32 games. Another way of thinking of it is there's 64 teams that have played in those games who failed to go on to the Super Bowl the same year. I absolutely think this is the year that it could be broken. Two very good teams you've mentioned there in the Bills and the Jags, but I'm actually going to go with the Ravens as the team that I think has the best shot to reach the Super Bowl. I'd want to pick them, seeing as they are my Super Bowl pick, which you guys pressured me into on the opening podcast of the season. But no, based on 6 weeks of play, I really do believe that they have the best shot of those three teams that we've mentioned. No disrespect to the other London teams that have played, but they just look like a very well-balanced team overall. They've had their issues, but they can beat you in a number of ways, which is crucial. You can't be too reliant on one aspect of the game. They can beat you through the air, rushing, obviously. And then the defense is always there to pick up the slack. They're tied for the lead in sacks with 24 league-wide. So they can beat you in a number of ways. They're 4-2 now. Their 2 losses against the Colts and Steelers are games that they'll tell you themselves they've thrown away. And they'll be they'll be coming out of those games knowing that they're the better team despite the record. We also discussed a couple of weeks ago that they've been dealing with a number of injuries through these first few weeks. Not season long. We should see a lot of these guys gradually come back if they haven't already come back. So I really think the Ravens haven't been at their best through 6 weeks, yet they're 4-2. We've seen signs of what they can be, and I think when they really get into their groove in the second half of the season, they will be the team to stop. They do have a bit of a gauntlet schedule towards the back end of the year, so that's when we really will see, whether they're built for making a push through the playoffs, which they haven't proved in the Lamar Jackson era. Their last 4 games actually are at Jacksonville, at San Francisco versus Miami, and home to Pittsburgh. So a very tough last 4 games, and they'll want to have their playoff seeding in a fairly strong position before that. But look, based on 6 weeks of action, I definitely think the Ravens are one to watch for the Super Bowl.
It's kind of crazy. Like, what a world we live in that we can have this conversation and it's genuine. But which of the London teams could make the Super Bowl and to have a genuine debate between 3 of us picking 3 different teams. I mean, if we actually had the conversation, it could be any number of ways we'd tackle with this. Who is the quarterback off the teams you'd most like? I'd probably go for Lawrence, but the argument is most obvious Lamar Jackson. Like, he's playing like lights out. He's the reason that the Ravens happen. Maybe not Malik Willis. And then it's like, yeah, which of the defenses, which of even the wide receivers would you want? Like, you could split it in any number of ways, and we could come up with 3 different answers. It's like if you could combine the 3 best versions of those 3 teams that we've mentioned, like, you have a powerhouse team.
Mark, me and you were talking on the podcast after the game, which I really enjoyed. Listening back to it, laughing on the way to my workplace on Monday morning. We were talking very briefly about teams we'd like to see play next year, and I don't want to have that whole generic conversation, but I think it's only right because Jason was sitting on his laba watching the game. Is there one team you'd like to see next year, Jason? I'm going to put it out there because we're 16 minutes in, we're safe. I think we'll see the Chicago Bears play in Madrid next year in the Metropolitano or the Santiago Bernabeu. But in London, I think it's time for the Cowboys or the Niners to come back. Jason, who would you like to see next year?
I think it's always fun when you have a team that has a big following in the UK. Obviously, we talked about how the Jags are developing that following now. But yeah, 49ers or Cowboys, a historical team. Maybe the Jets if we have Aaron Rodgers back. There's definitely a few names like that, we're getting some passionate fan bases to fill up the stadium. And that's always a fun thing to watch because the atmosphere, even when we saw with the Bills, not that the Bills are, a historical powerhouse by any means, but when they do have a fan base come together and, really take over a stadium, it can make the game so much funner to watch. So yeah, definitely a kind of historical team with a big following over here would be one that I'd want.
Okay, let's park that there. Really enjoyed London this year. I want to thank publicly the NFL UK, NFL Europe, everybody involved, and we are tres excited. I didn't do my GCSE German or Key Stage C German, so I can't say it. Very excited for Frankfurt in a few weeks.
Guten excited, I think, is the correct pronunciation.
Okay. I produced a German podcast last year, and there's a word in German. Shout out to Tiziana and Julian. Hopefully see them for one of the games for a podcast. There's a word in German that people use when they're not sure what to say. It doesn't mean anything. It's like genau. So if you'll hear a German Mark say that in Frankfurt in the next few weeks, it doesn't mean anything. Like genau. Like have we a word for that?
It's probably like poof. And you're like, poof.
We don't go like I never say poof. Who says
like down in Cork?
Yeah,
every gap like doesn't mean much, does it?
Bang on. Like here, Cork is
sure.
while similar. When this all like I say bye. All right, bye. That's a wild Tyrone thing, like Jason. So
yeah. Kid, bye. We've got a few down here.
Kid.
I like kid.
Okay. I think Mark feels left out, so we'll just move.
I will bamboozle Jeff with all these Cork slang. See if he can understand it.
Hey, we have made a career now at this point in asking people to explain Irish things, and they have no idea. So you can absolutely be sure your resources will be put or called upon, Jason. 100%. He's going to be asked to explain these things.
Jason's 100% going to be on stage for Jeff. linktr.ee/NFL Ireland. If you want to cop Galway, Galway's starting to sell quite quick. So if you want to go, do let us know. We'll be having pints in Galway 100% after the night, and a couple of pints in Cork as well. The day after Cork is actually the Championship Sunday, so I'll be out the gap, to be honest with you. But we'll have good crack in Cork. Really looking forward to it. LA 2028, the Olympics, flag football has been added to it, and not just to say that, Mark, but we had the opportunity and to go down to Limerick during the summer, and I really found it not just beneficial for a Tyrone man that had never been down that part of the world in my life, but I really enjoyed it. And I'd say both of us, I can't speak for you, but Mark, I'd say both of us were on the fence a wee bit, like, oh, we're heading all the way down here, we're not sure what to expect. I loved it, and props to IFAF, to AFI, to everybody included in that, and best luck to AFI with their flag football event this Sunday. I'd love to go, lads, but I'm wrecked. We'll send Mark Hogan, our Dublin correspondent, instead, straight from Paris. But props to them. Their local flag league ends this Sunday. The flag football is going to be in the Olympics, and Mark, we're going to do something special. Apparently, do you want to tell us what we're going to do?
Well, name the Irish team that needs to go for us. Historically, that is, we're going to pick the sports stars through the years who would give us our best chance. Because the thing is, like, a gold medal is on the line here, and it's one that we could compete in. So fingers are crossed. Wouldn't it be cool? And preface it all with, like, the NFL obviously got this across the line because they want to see the sport grow. I saw it being announced and I was like, I am starting flag football, and I'm sure that seriously, it's going to help a lot of people play the game, and it's smart marketing, I suppose, from the NFL's point of view. But it is great that it is definitely going to expose more people to the sport over here, which is great.
I again 21 minutes in ish. I want to form a flag team in Tyrone and Armagh. And I'm being fully serious. I'd love to do it.
Everyone and their mom now at this point.
Huh?
Everyone and their mom's going to be doing one now at this point. Hey, like you said, going down to Limerick, it was great. There were so many people involved already with it that I'm sure, like, thinking, oh, it's great that this is finally put on a platform that, it's going to grow. But, like, there's countries that are clearly taking it very seriously already. Like, the Germans were class, the Israelis were class, Great British team, obviously, with our friend Phoebe Schechter, were class. So yeah, it'll be interesting because it's definitely a very, very accessible sport for all kinds of people. You had all shapes and sizes down there. It wasn't just young people, it was older people too. So it is one of those sports I think all of us could get involved in, even as we hit the next decade of our lives, some of us.
I am being fully serious. I love how you laughed. Like there was, so for people listening, there's obviously like a local league here, but it would be too hard to have a proper team for us up in Tyrone because there's big teams in Belfast, Craigavon, Northwest, and shout out to the Causeway Giants. There you go. But I'm seriously looking into it. Genuinely, why not? Michael McQuaid, GM. Anyway, I sort of went above. Like, now I've put a name down for each sport here: hurling, football, rugby, soccer, athletics. Do you want to go hurling first? Because I don't know what you've picked, and we'll see if we're on the right path.
This was not supposed to be broadcast. That's how we were breaking it up. But yes, I have decided that it's probably best if we look at these different sports. So for the hurling, I thought there's been legends down through the years, but I think of a guy that tried to go professional essentially for Wexford a number of years back and went for Lee Chin. He was, I don't know, I suppose if we look at him in his prime, he was so athletic and so gifted that I think it would translate very, very well. The build off him and everything. I think Lee Chin would be our man from hurling.
And this shows you how much of a depth that I went into this. I just picked Owen Murphy because he's a Ravens fan. I thought he'd be a bit of a crack. That's literally it. So Lee Chin, yeah, probably a better choice. Jason, did you pick any, or are we just having a bit of crack with this, or what? What's the?
Yeah, well, I didn't put too much thought in. I didn't know we could go into the past. First of all, I was looking at present players, so that would have opened up a whole.
Oh yeah, that's my apologies. I should have explained
that. Just for a bit of context, we are flag football is 5 aside, so we're picking 5 players that we want to represent Ireland. Yes,
that's it, Jet. Boom.
Cool. Well, in terms of soccer, I went, as I say, with the current team, and I think Shadoze Ogbeni could be a great wide receiver. I'm guessing we have 1 quarterback and 4 receivers.
Yeah, but the wide receiver, or sorry, who is it? The center can catch the ball as well, isn't that it, Michael?
Yeah, and then there's a defense as well.
And then also the quarterback can give a pass off and then go and run and catch it themselves as well, right? Okay, so yeah, that factors in for me later on in this competition.
I think it's funny because Jason mentioned Ogbeni, because I have mentioned 2 potential soccer players at a quarter, and I don't want to be that lad, but I was going to say 2 football players. Soccer we'll stick with soccer, not to confuse people. I think Shane Duffy could be a good quarterback. He's tall. He's got the lanky legs. You just imagine him sort of bossing it around the field. But I think for lads, for Northern Ireland boys as well, Johnny Evans, experienced quarterback or centre. And I wouldn't pick Johnny Evans at his age to be a wide receiver, and probably with Shane Duffy as well. But look, a Derry man, an Antrim man. I gotta pick them boys over Ogbeni. I think Ogbeni's class though. Love it. Rugby, athletics. Mark, do you want to jump in?
For rugby, the sentimentalist in me was thinking, because the week that's in it, that you go for Keith Earls. But the only man that's ever scored more tries, was about to say touchdowns, is Brian O'Driscoll. Surely we have to go with like peak Brian O'Driscoll on the wing. Would be insane for this team, right?
I remember I ran in the ball in Heathrow Airport, and he was stuck with me for 27 minutes when we were in the security queue, and we were literally talking about the NFL, and he had a genuine interest in it. So I'd be interested to see if he would do it. One of the biggest regrets I have is not getting the picture, like a fanboy. Should have done it, but shout out to him if he's watching. I like Josh van der Fleer, boys. Bit of athleticism, hard hitting. Why not? Athletics. I'm gonna say for athletics, because Mark, I know you have an option. I'm gonna keep it north, boys. Reese McClanahan. The boy can twist and turn. Fire him in a wide receiver. If he has a bit of speed in him, he'll be Riley. Big fan of Reese.
There's only one answer for athletics, and it has to be Rashida Adeleke. Like, she's insane at the moment. Like, she's gonna win Ireland a medal in the next Olympics, whether it's gold, silver, or bronze is to be seen. But she is literally going in my quarterback, and it's gonna be, give the ball to her, she gives a pass off, and she's going to be down the field. I think she's our superpower, Rashida Adeleke, in the middle.
I'm not trying to leave Jason out of this, but I have one more pick. I have got Dara Canavan in as well. Just had to pick a Tyrone man. I want to give a shout out to Ty Gleader, who had his Irish international combine last week at the NFL Academy. Niall Morgan was kicking 60 odd hitters, so let's see what happens there. Please God, he doesn't leave Tyrone yet. But Darragh Hanlon, a bit of skill, bit of finesse. I mean, he's Peter's son. He can do anything. Frankly, he could cook dinner, he could run, he could do whatever the hell he wants. So, Jason, have you any other names you want to add in? Shane Duffy.
Look, now that we're going historical as well, I might mention we have to get a Cork man in there. So Setanta O'Halpine, who was stolen from us down to Oz, could have been a Cork great. Maybe he still is a Cork great. But yeah, Setanta. At least he plays with novel ball, so that might be an advantage. We have quarterbacks there who I've never seen use their hands, so we need some bit of hand-eye coordination on the team. So yeah, Setanta.
We will put out an official graphic of the final 5, and I feel like he has to go down. I thought you were going to say Roy Keane, and why Roy Keane wouldn't make it for me is because it's non-contact. So you don't need his aggression on the field at all. Maybe his intimidation will work out for us. But yeah, I love that O'Halpine pick.
I want you to put like a half and half accolade of Shane Duffy and Johnny Evans just to see the comments on Instagram. Please do it. In terms of Instagram, can I just give a shout out if people are listening to the men and women's flag team for Ireland, because they're massive supporters of what we do. So really appreciate it, and shout out to all them this weekend, because I know
Kelly Dwyer on Ian Dempsey on Today FM last week was a great listen, and that was like literally on the eve of it all getting announced, and it's like the excitement came through. So it was class to listen to her, especially on such a massive radio show.
But like, and just to add on that, like, you're right. Like there is a medal opportunity there. Like that was the first time they ever joined the championship this year in Limerick, and there's no point in saying otherwise. Like they could literally do something over the next 4 to 5 years where they grow and grow and grow. And we wish them, like, I'll do whatever I can, as well as setting up a flag football team. If you want to get involved, folks, give me a shout. I can't pay you. I'm sorry, I have no money. Right, the NFC is in a really interesting position right now. Never mind the fact that the Eagles and the Niners both lost last week, and I feel like we already talked that to death on various podcasts, and I very much enjoyed it. But one thing I think we need to go into detail on, Mark and Jason, is the Detroit Lions, lads. The Detroit Lions. Have I got that topic correct? Before I've got a whole spill of stuff here, yeah?
Well, I suppose the thought process was really, who is the heir apparent to the Dallas Cowboys, or is there an heir apparent to the Dallas Cowboys as that kind of number 3 team behind Philadelphia and San Francisco? And I suppose I'm a fool because I know in the power rankings that I have it being the 49ers, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and then the Lions. And it's like, personally, I don't see that myself. I love the Lions, and we'll get into it now. I just think that Cowboys fans, if you put them any lower than the 3rd team, they absolutely lose in the comments. And I'm like, for what it's worth, I'll just leave it them and they can do it. But the Detroit Lions now are definitely in play for the number 1 seed in the NFC. And it's partly to do with talent, it's partly to do with the schedule. It's a lot of hunger and it's a lot of fight, but they're definitely in this fight. The Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers, they probably have those harder schedules, but it's like everyone is kind of paying attention and figuring them out. I'm not saying the Lions are under the radar, but aren't they under the radar?
But you have them 8th in your rankings at the minute, yeah?
Yeah, but that's
I watch these with great ease, Mark, every week. I'm putting the Broncos 32nd. I mean, I don't want to say you're in a strike 2 on this channel, but Jesus Christ, they're not that bad. Like.
That is outrageous to think that they're not 32. Like, the Denver Broncos are the worst team to watch, and they have no future compared to like what other teams can navigate out of. Like, they're stuck with Champagne, they're stuck with Russell Wilson, whereas at least other teams have a bit of hope and can like kind of do stuff in the draft and free agency. They have money, etc., etc., etc. But going back to this, it's like, yeah, the Chiefs, the Dolphins, the Bills, the Jags, and then the other NFC teams will be ahead of the Detroit Lions. But, and I want to let Jason in here because I don't want to be hugging the mic. I have a lot of points to make about why the Detroit Lions are so feisty. But I will say one thing, and it's, if Jared Goff wasn't a first overall pick once upon a time, and he came into the league like Brock Purdy, I think we'd look at them a lot differently. I think that this is what I'm saying about legacy, that we pay attention too much to what we know about people based on other years. But it's like, if this was Brock Purdy coming in, he should be getting, Jared Goff should be looked at the same level. And it's kind of like, oh, it's new and it's fresh, and we base way too much of Jared Goff on the LA Rams, and I'm just ready to completely forget that ever happened. And it's like, I'm just in on them now.
Jason, just to jump on that before you come in and just to go on the Lions, and we'll move on after you have a wee chat about it. Before they played against the Bucks, like they ranked 8th in offensive EPA, 10th in defensive EPA. They're now 6th in offense, 7th in defense. Their offensive line is dominant. I think they're a top 2 offensive line through PFF.
They're top 1 now. Top 1. They went to number 1 this week. The Lions, and it's interesting as well, because when they went to number 1, I was kind of looking at it, like I could see the Penny Sewell pick all over again, when behind the scenes they're like jumping up and down. They built that thing really strong. Like when you look at the line now, it's playing really well, but what's his name? Hello Paluti VT Vaitai is out injured, and he can't get back into the team because they're pretty happy with what they have there with Graham Glasgow as a depth piece. And it's like, when you're able to just like, disregard, like, their depth is class. And it's kind of like the opposite of what happened, say, the Bengals. Like that's where they fell apart. Like when you're shedding players to injury and you're putting guys in there that are able to compete then for the starting job, like that's a very strong position to be in. And it's like with David Montgomery now out, the running back, he's going to miss a few more weeks. Jamar Gibbs is coming back into the team again. Like they probably are a bit like the Philadelphia Eagles last year, in that out of all the teams that are getting injuries, the overlap for their injuries is really working in their favor, that they're getting healthy anytime they lose a guy, which is it's complete luck really, but the Eagles rode that to a Super Bowl last year when it came to the injuries.
And Jason, just to add on that very quickly, like the Lions are 13-3 in their last 16 games. They've won 4 consecutive games by 14 or more points. It's the longest streak in the league since 1969. The offense obviously is leading what they're doing, but their run defense is second in the league. They're allowing just 3.3 yards per game. It feels like the right time to be a Lions fan, and by God, they've waited for this moment, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the defense there, because it's the offense that's getting the headlines, and rightly so, because they are playing absolutely brilliant football through the air and on the ground through Dave Montgomery. Fun to see Jameson Williams crop up as well with a big touchdown catch last week. They just have a lot of weapons, and they're a very fun team to watch overall, and you root for the guys. When St. Brown was rushing for his long reception touchdown, and Reynolds came in with just a monstrous block on one of the defensive backs. And you can see that these guys all love playing together, and they're playing for each other. There was also a post-game speech with Dan Campbell kind of rallying the team. And like you can just see how bought in everyone is. The offense and the defense, they're all cheering on each other, almost passing off the plaudits. Even the punter got a game ball in that post-game speech. So even the special teams are pitching in and doing their job. But really, you need a strong defense to switch from a fun team to watch that can make the playoffs to a team that can get into the playoffs and really make a push for the Super Bowl. The defense is a crucial part of that, and they weren't ready last year. They were one of the bottom teams in the league in terms of yards per game, points per game, all the normal metrics. But credit to Aaron Glenn, his unit has really improved so far this year. It's early days, and the offenses they've faced haven't exactly been stellar, bar the Chiefs in week 1. But they really are looking like a much better unit, whether it's Brian Branch at safety, the rookie. Aiden Hutchinson, of course, is going to do his thing along the defensive line. He's 4.5 sacks this year so far. And they've made some good re-signings, and just, names that aren't exactly star names or you wouldn't hear shouted about week in, week out. But inside linebacker Alex Anzalone, saw some great breakdown of him on Twitter, what he's doing at inside linebacker to help with that dominant rush defense that they have. Very fun team to watch. I really think they have taken the next step forward from last year. A big question mark for me was whether Jared Goff could keep up his play, because it's after people were almost writing him off after the Rams, and the Lions acquired him in a trade that seemed like they were doing the Rams a favour by taking Goff off their hands kind of way. So I was still kind of wondering, maybe they've just caught somehow an outlier year here, but he's absolutely taken that into this year as well, and he's put his name right up there in the top 10 quarterback in the league conversations. So just, it's a fun team to root for. Dan Campbell's obviously a fun coach to root for, and I think they aren't just a feisty fun team anymore. They're actually going to be soon looked at as a powerhouse and a real threat by other teams.
Jared Goff is topping some major metrics, like first in deep passes beyond 20 yards, third in QBR, third in yards per attempt, fourth in touchdowns combined for, so that's about throwing and running in for them. It's like when you mentioned Jameson Williams growing into the offense a bit more, Jason, it's like they already have Amon-Ra St. Brown who was there. Craig Reynolds obviously showed the pure passion that Dan Campbell has absolutely instilled in the team, but it's like Sam Laporta being literally probably one of he's the best tight end behind Travis Kelce, right? Or he might even based on this year alone be the best in the league. It's like what they got him in the second round this year. It's like their offense is class. And when you mentioned Brian Branch, he's getting healthy now as well. He's been injured for a couple of weeks. Everything seems to be going right for them. And when you look at their actual slate, they have left the Ravens, the Chargers, the Packers, the Cowboys are the legit teams left. But the Raiders, the Bears twice, the Broncos, the Vikings twice. Give them wins in those games that I just mentioned, those easier teams. That brings them up to 11 wins already. So it's like you get a win, say, against the Saints here and there, and you're into 12. You have one upset along the way against one of those feisty teams, and you're literally there for the number 1 seed.
Time will tell. Let's talk about that Ravens game in the last segment, but let's give ourselves a headache, boys. And I'm going to go first this week. I don't think I had a good week last week. I can't even remember who I picked. I said, Travis Kelce's backup. That didn't go well. Sorry, boys. I'd like to look at the Broncos against the Packers this week. I don't really want to, but you're looking at AJ Dillon because Aaron Jones, at the time of recording, is limited in practice. He has had a bye last week, and he's been up and down this season in terms of his production through injury. He's got a bit of a bum hamstring. So I reckon what's going to happen this week is I think AJ Dillon's going to run all over the Denver Broncos. Even if Aaron Jones is RB1, bell cow, use by the middle of the third quarter, this is AJ Dillon's day. I think the Packers are going to put one up on the Broncos this week, and I think Jordan Love's going to have a hell of a week as well. But on the run game, I think AJ Dillon will embarrass my Denver Broncos this Sunday. That's my headache. Who have you boys got?
Sorry, I was waiting for Jason to go. I can jump in if you want.
Let's go.
Go on, Jason.
So there's a bit of a sack bowl happening this week with the Washington Commanders going to New York to play the Giants. The Commanders have been sacked 34 times, league leading, and the Giants are just behind them with allowing 33 sacks. But the coach I think is going to have the biggest headache is Bobby Johnson, who is the Giants offensive line coach, because the challenge they have up ahead of them with the Washington defensive line is a lot more threatening than what the Giants have on offer. They have the 6th most sacks in the NFL, the Commanders do, led by Montez Sweat, who's really established himself as just a dominant pass rusher at this stage in his career. 4.5 sacks of his own. He burst out in the first couple of weeks, had 3 sacks, but over the last 4 weeks he's had just 1.5. So I think Montez Sweat is due another big game here, and whether it's Tyrod Taylor or Daniel Jones, I don't know, is that confirmed yet? But that Giants offensive line is in for a tough challenge against Sweat, Chase Young, the whole shebang on that Commander side. So Bobby Jones, the offensive line coach, is going to have his work cut out for him.
Funny enough, actually, the Giants, isn't it worrying that the Giants look better without Daniel Jones?
The Bills weren't great on Sunday night. You were they weren't.
Yeah.
Because sometimes last year, and I don't mean to be down on Giants fans, but last year the Giants turned into this media darling where everyone talked about them. Aren't they great?
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Everyone was so sick of them. Everyone was so sick of the Giants last year. Everyone was like, how are they pulling this one off? They sneaked into the playoffs and no one gave them any respect. Everyone was like, well, even Washington would be better than they.
And I think Dabo himself is almost he exceeded expectations so much in that first year. It was going to be impossible to live up to them this year. And, that New York media market.
But Jason, when you pay a guy $160 million, he's not good enough. And it's that's not good enough. Did you see Dable and McDermott's reaction on just after the game on Sunday night? Like, barely even looked at each other.
Yeah,
but Dable went up to Josh Allen and was like hugging and everything. I was like, what?
I don't want to make excuses because there's a whole host of things go into it, and I do think that questions over that contract as well for Daniel Jones. But as I just said, sacked 33 times, second in the league. His offensive line isn't doing much help for him, and when you're not in that right contextual situation, as we saw with Jared Goff before he's found his home now in Detroit, it's easy for all the blame, and that's what they're paid for. That's why all the blame goes on the quarterback. Interesting, it's this topic for another time, and you could talk about it all day, but when you see these quarterbacks who are almost written off early in their career and never get that second shot, and then you see a guy like Jared Goff who's having this resurgence, it's kind of an interesting question to see, like, in another universe, what failure quarterback is sitting on the couch depressed, who could have been that one, could have been a star if he was put in the right situation.
I think teams look to Carson Wentz when they think about that, because there'll always be, like, I'm dying to see Sam Darnold now again, but you have to think that the Carson Wentz situation, when it's like when he got his second chance, it was awful. It's like, don't ever make me go to a game that has Carson Wentz in it. I suppose if we could look at my headache, I'm going to look, I think this is, and you can correct me, I think this is the Monday Night Football game. The 49ers are playing the Vikings. Yeah. Ugh, yuck.
You'll be up.
Thank God I work early the next morning. I won't have to sit through that one.
You'll wake up and it'll still be going on.
That's exactly it. Do you know what? Hey, maybe the Vikings can pull it off. They obviously now are 2-1 in the last 3 weeks after getting a couple of bogey teams, the Panthers and the Bears, and they obviously went closer. Probably they only lost to the Chiefs by 7 points, but I don't know. Call it surprising or not, they are probably feeling themselves after not giving up. I suppose they haven't had a 100-yard receiver go against them the last few weeks, I've noticed. Tyson Bagent, hadn't even heard of him for the Bears until he went and got 84 yards the other day. The week before that, Travis Kelce, 67 yards. Adam Thielen the week before that, 76 yards. I think that Brandon Ayuk is going to be an absolute headache for them. It's kind of twofold, obviously, now with the injuries. Maybe or maybe not. They're saying that Christian McCaffrey might be back next week. I don't think that that's what's happening, but whatever. Let's see what happens on Monday night. Maybe that's smoke and mirrors, maybe it's not. That Brandon Ayuk, the offense will have to go through him a bit more, especially if Deebo Samuel's going to be out. And I kind of think, Jason, back to Byron Murphy, who is now with the Vikings, if and when the 49ers were coming to town and Byron Murphy was with the Cardinals, if you're saying that we have to rely on him to completely lock down Brandon Ayuk, you wouldn't be looking for the game too much. So I think that he could run all over them. No shot completely intended on Byron Murphy, but if he's matching up on him, I think that Brandon Ayuk, if the offense is being fed through him, he could have a night.
Let's look ahead to week 7 of the league. I want to first off thank everyone that listens to the podcast, and especially give a massive thanks to everybody in Zimbabwe who has been listening to the podcast over the last 2 weeks. We are now charting in the top sports podcasts in Zimbabwe. So a big welcome to you folks. You're more than welcome, and fair play, boys. Fair play. Shout out to Zimbabweans. The NFL Week 7 gets underway on Thursday night whenever the Jaguars go to the Saints. But there's some clinkers on Sunday, and we'll go into a couple in a few minutes. Lions at the Ravens. Ravens don't take a bye week from London, go straight in. Raiders at the Bears, the Browns at the Colts, the Bills at the Pats, the Commanders at the Giants, the Falcons at the Bucks, Steelers at the Rams, Cards, potentially with different quarterback at some point, with the Seahawks, Packers at the Broncos, Chargers at the Chiefs, the Dolphins at the Eagles, and the Niners at the Vikings. We're going to look at this sort of a trio of games this week, because we don't usually go through picks. We do that with Jeff on the Friday morning, so do listen in, folks, if you can. But I think it's important because, Mark, it feels like this really is the first time that we've had such a sort of marquee set of games, like Lions, Ravens in the early window. We've got the Chargers against the Chiefs in the late window, and then, like, you're talking about not staying up on Monday night. It's very difficult for me to sit here and say I'm not staying up on Sunday night. That's a massive game. the 5-1 Dolphins against the 5-1 Eagles in Philadelphia. Kelly Green's open. Panthers, Bengals, Cowboys, Texans, Jets, Titans are on a bye week. I'll talk about the
You know what? I
Chargers
think
and the Chiefs in a minute, but go for it.
no, I feel like therein lies why the slate looks so good, because the Jets, the Texans, the Titans, even though I love the Texans now, but the Jets, Titans, Texans, Panthers, the Bengals, who aren't playing amazing right now, and the Cowboys are off as well. But I think that's why it's like there's not so many bogey teams. A lot of teams are matched up well. But you mentioned the Dolphins Eagles. Can I have that game? Is anyone drafting that as the game
Go for
of
it.
the
Go
weekend?
for it.
Because
do you want me to go with Chargers Chiefs first, so you actually get a bit of time to do this?
no, 100% no. Because I love this. So I do love the Sunday slate, but I had to look at Dolphins Eagles and think, well, could that be a potential Super Bowl matchup? So I went to our friends at AA Sport and I saw what are the likelihood that could be the Super Bowl playoff, and it's 23-1, which is extremely low. When you're looking at other teams, it could be 1,000-1 to be that this is the team. The Eagles are only behind the 49ers to be the NFC representative. The Dolphins are only behind the Chiefs and Bills, and for me, I mean, I think that the Dolphins right now are looking better than the Bills and potentially even the Chiefs. But I think what's extremely interesting for me, coming off the week that's just been, is that the Dolphins defense, on paper at least, is set up to defend against Jalen Hurts a bit like the Jets did to him the other day, and that's from the back end. I mean, we talked on the Skell podcast about a play in particular when Jalen Hurts was intercepted towards the end of the game, that he just completely read the coverage wrong. Now, I suppose we didn't get into it at the time, and I probably should have, to be like, I'm not a complete idiot now. The Jets were baiting him all game, kind of like looking to bring pressure with the defensive backs. And then they kind of set up towards the end of the game that they're going to show a look that they're going to bring a blitz. And then they drop back and they bracketed Dallas Goedert, the tight end. Sorry, that's my mouse gone, so there'll be no more muting me for the rest of the show. But the Dolphins are a defense that are set up like that they'll be showing looks with the defensive backs. And it is going to be a very quick lesson for Jalen Hurts to come around, and let's see what the Dolphins have learned off that Jets performance, and whether teams are going to be able to learn from it. One of the best to do it will be Vic Fangio in only a week, but he'll be able to look at it and let's see, can that be reproduced? Because if there is some more very questionable interceptions from Jalen Hurts, suddenly there's going to be a serious chink in the Eagles' armor. And this is Sunday football, so what a way to do it.
Waiting all day for Sunday night. You're talking about that. What was the odds there again for that Super Bowl? Because it was funny, because on the Picks podcast that me and Michaela have on Friday morning, folks, if you want to listen to it, it's funny, Mark, because we were like sort of joking, like that would be a great Super Bowl, wouldn't it? Like,
yeah, 24-1 for them to make it. And yeah, I think it was pretty basic maths that I did. I literally just got the two odds for them to make the Super Bowl. So I don't know if that's technically sound, but I believe that's how betting works, that you just get their two odds and combine them.
I don't know if that's the case, but I'll find out. I think
I'm pretty sure it is the case. It's just that they wouldn't. 888 Sport wouldn't let me do an accumulator because you can't combine the odds on their site. But if you were to be able to combine the odds, that's what it would be. So if anyone's like rushing to 888 Sport, our lovely sponsor, you can't actually put the bet on. I'm just saying that that's the odds that would be there. So sorry for the confusion.
Beautiful. Jason, I'll look very quickly at this Chargers Chiefs game before you go into your deep dive on the Ravens. I understand on a Tuesday morning sometimes that people in media can get very angsty and they want to talk about certain things and certain topics. And yes, there were a couple of occasions minimum on Monday Night Football where Herbert just had a couple of poor passes. And look, it doesn't make him a bad player. Everyone is up and down days, and it's just the reality of the league. You're going to play well sometimes. You're not going to play well. I want to give a shout out for that Asian woman who was a Chargers fan in the crowd. She's been viral over the last week. I love her.
Fan or not, or plant or not, I should say.
Yes. Now, has she been paid to be there? I don't know. But going back, I say this every other week these days. The night before the Super Bowl in LA, I was in Santa Monica, and there was a Chargers tailgate taking place. So I make of that what you will. I like the Chargers, but I don't know if I like Brandon Staley anymore. They're going up against a 5-1 Kansas City Chiefs team, and the Chargers have lost 7 games by 3 points or less since last year. And a lot of people are pinning the inability to actually win a game to Brandon Staley, and I don't blame them, to be quite frank. But look, the reality is even if the Chargers lose this game and go to 2-4 in the season, Staley is not going to lose his job this side of Christmas. Hell, he might even stay on next year. Let's be clear here. But I believe that a strong performance, regardless of the result this week, from Herbert is essential to not just win back the league and certain people around it, but to also get the fans back on board. You know, this is the game where the Chargers can either play up, make a statement, stay in it. When you've got like Khalil Mack trying to exploit the Chiefs. When you've got Khalil Mack and different guys trying to exploit the Chiefs and what they do, when you've got Herbert who can put points up on the board with what he has on a receiving core, and you've got a running game, there's no reason why Herbert cannot find a way to actually get it down the field and score as many points as possible. I believe if you can go up against Kansas City, whether it's in Arrowhead or whether it's in LA, and you can put 30 to 33 to 34 points on the board, you've got a hell of a chance. What happened with the Chargers previously in these games is they get so close and they fall. I think this is the week where they get very close and they lose again. Sorry, Chargers fans. Then again, is the game in Arrowhead?
I don't know where it is, but it does seem like...
Yeah.
Well, then they're not going to win.
You know, it's kind of like one of those games that, you know, people say like put up or shut up. It seems like it's just put up. It's like you don't have to shut up afterwards, but put up. You can lose this game, but it's that they keep on like just getting across.
If they lose this game, it's over because like even the Raiders have a better record at the minute. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I haven't looked into the Chargers' upcoming schedule. Look, I've probably been more negative on them than positive, but like I don't expect them to win. But if they put up 30 points on the Chiefs and it's like a 36 to 33 game, am I going to be more impressed than negative on them? It's like, yeah, absolutely. It's like I don't expect them putting up 30 points. That's a massive score.
Love it, Jason. Ride us home, man. Ride us home.
Yeah, it's just on that game quickly. It's such a fun quarterback matchup. You can't beat a good quarterback matchup in the NFL. As fun as some powerful offenses like the 49ers or maybe even the Dolphins, all that might be harsh. As fun as they are to watch scheme-wise and put up a million points, you can't beat just a good old-fashioned quarterback battle. Two guys out there making insane throws. But just for the final game, it really has me questioning whether I'll even watch Red Zone this Sunday or whether I'll just sit through each of these 3 games in a row because it really is a mouth-watering slate. But Detroit are at Baltimore to begin. We've talked about the Lions. I've talked about the Ravens already in this podcast, but the matchup itself is just such an interesting encounter because they match up to each other very well. The Lions are allowing, Michael, as you said a while ago, fewest or second fewest rush yards per game. And that's obviously where the Ravens make their mark. They're 5th highest in rush yards per game on offense. So one of them's got a break. On the other side, the Ravens are a fantastic team at defending the pass. They're second in the NFL in yards per game for pass yards allowed. And the Detroit Lions really make their name passing the ball. They're 4th in pass yards per game on offense. It's just a case of which one is going to break on the day. I could almost see a scenario where they counteract each other and the game is either going to be won on the ground for Detroit or through the air for Baltimore. But I wouldn't expect a shootout or anything like that. I think it's just 2 fantastically even-matched teams. And there's something about these AFC, NFC encounters where you only see them once every 4 years, like Detroit Lions against Baltimore Ravens. It even just sounds like an odd pairing. So when they do kind of come together and 2 of the teams are on top form as they are, it's definitely going to be a fun one to watch. And that's the Super Bowl. We're in for a Super Bowl preview because my prediction is the Lions against the Ravens, as I mentioned that I was pressured into on the first podcast. But it's not looking too bad. So
pressured into.
It's not looking too bad. Yeah, definitely a fun one to watch. And yeah, we've went through each team's in depth now in this podcast, but should be a good one.
Bring it on. I'm buzzing to be at home this Sunday. If you are sitting watching the games at home this Sunday, please do reach out to us. NFL Ireland, Instagram, X, TikTok, primarily Instagram these days. Do reach out to us. We'd love to see folks your photos if you're at games. A couple of lads and ladies sent us photos this week. We really appreciate that. Keep doing it. Really appreciate it. Mark, have you any words of wisdom to sign us off? Are you just looking forward to sitting in your laba? on Sunday night
That's
sleeping.
funny. The Steelers, the official Steelers Ireland account has been putting up fan photos, but one guy has now appeared 3 times. It's like, who is this guy that it's
No.
but yeah, no, I did have a point that's after go. Oh yeah, no, I do want to show that this was recorded more recently than or as recent as we do know that Kyler Murray has been nominated to come off the PUP and Buda Baker. How we have not just had a Cardinals centered podcast is an absolute wonder. I thought we'd sneak it in when we were talking about the team that would challenge the Eagles and the 49ers for that NFC Super Bowl spot, but alas, we're running out of time, so maybe next week, Michael.
Yeah, Ross and the Run's coming on, so we will talk to you soon, boys. For now, 2 weeks out from Frankfurt, looking forward to. Thank you all. Obviously, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jason. Just thanks to everybody. I'll be back with Connor Michaela on Sunday night, actually Monday morning football. Looking forward to that there, and you can catch us up all week on social at NFL Ireland. We will chat to you soon. Talk about